tonight. Appreciate you coming out.
Sure thing.
And so basically, I don't know if you must have a copy of the agenda, but again, so the bullet points are plans for proactive CMMP services in Bolton, detail of any plans for spraying, and policy and recommended response to various public threat health levels. Scott has done an excellent job of walking us through the process. But I think I'm going to guess that many in the room right now are in here because I don't think people are quite clear on the spraying process. And so actually, why don't you, I guess if you can, we'll roll through the bullet points, and then I think that's going to be the real conversation. So.
Okay, sure. Yeah, just since the beginning of July, when we started providing service to the town of Bolton, we have 10 of our surveillance trap sites currently in operation. We are continuing to survey for additional sites. So far, we've collected 319 mosquitoes, comprising 11 different species of mosquito. Of those, 252 of those samples have been sent into the Mass Department of Public Health lab in Jamaica Plain for testing. So far, we have not identified any virus in any of our mosquito samples. We have treated 646 catch basins. Those are the storm drains along the streets, the side of the streets. That is a preferred habitat for the Culex mosquito that is potentially could spread West Nile virus. And of those 646, 152 of those were actually today. So we have pretty good coverage town-wide already to this point. The product we used is called methoprene. It's a pretty commonly used insecticide on flea and tick products for our dogs and cats. So, and those typically give us between 30 and 45 days of control. So depending on when those start to expire, we'll look at the current trends, current weather patterns, et cetera, to see if retreatments are necessary. We have also started surveying and databasing wetland areas. However, we have not treated any of those at this point in time. We're in a bit of a lull as far as the wetland mosquitoes go. The cattail mosquito, which is our predominant species right now, starts hatching out later part of May into early part of June. So those have been on the wing now for several weeks. And if and when we get some larger rain events come through is when we start looking at some of the, what we call reflood areas that dry down during the summer, but then during a heavy rainstorm can potentially fill up with water for a week's time or so. Those can be pretty significant habitat for some mosquitoes as well. So, and then to date, we have received 77 service requests from residents. These would be spray requests. We have closed out 34 of those. 24 of those were canceled because of proximity to no spray exclusion properties, either private properties put in by residents or properties that have been sent in by the Conservation Commission. And currently we have 19 of those service requests that are still open, which, weather permitting, will be serviced on the scheduled evening, which for this month, the upcoming month, August, is Monday night for the town of Bolton. So the way that program works is residents can either call the office or submit a request online. And then on a scheduled evening, any resident that provides an email will get an email notification that they're scheduled for that evening. If the weather conditions are appropriate, wind speeds less than 10 miles an hour, temperatures above 55 degrees Fahrenheit, we'll do some limited applications around those properties. And then the next day, when our operations manager comes in, he then goes in the system, sees which ones were done, closes them out, and then again, if an email address has been provided, they get a notification that their area has been done and their service request is closed.
Tim, a couple of questions we've been receiving. One is when you address those service requests, do you do like an entire road or just the property that's been requested?
We're really trying to bring the town in relatively slowly. So we're doing the areas generally in front of the residences. If the residence is more than 100 feet off the road, the technicians will attempt to make contact with the resident to see if they would desire the truck to come up the driveway as well. We have done that on several occasions. So again, we're not doing any significant wide area spraying at this time. We're just trying to, get the areas that are requested, provide the buffer or cancel the ones out that are too close to the exclusion areas. And then as, time goes on and people learn more about the process, I think they'll get more comfortable with how we actually operate.
Uh-huh. And another question that I saw online while you were talking was, is the surveillance information available online? And I think it is, isn't it?
Yes, on our surveillance page on our website, we do keep a running list. It's updated once a week. I just updated it this morning. That lists all the towns we work in and all of the collections that we have submitted for testing. That's not going to show species that either we're not concerned about for virus transmission or just for some reason, maybe the sample count was too low in order to be sent in for testing. So what we publish online is for each community, the number of samples that have gone in for testing, as well as the species data as well.
Uh-huh. And how about the results when you get them back? Is that published as well?
Yes, on a different page. It's called the virus. Let me find it exactly to be sure. Virus information. It's a separate tab on our website. We do publish a weekly notification that if we do receive notice of any mosquito, human, or horse isolations of disease, we publish a list on there. It'll have town name. It'll have the virus that has been identified, the species of animal it's identified in. And if there is a coordinated response with our local community, we publish maps and other information on that area as well. So to date, we have not identified any virus. So that that link, when you go to it, you'll just see week ending July 25th, no confirmations. If and when additional information becomes apparent to us, we'll update that right away.
Okay. And at a prior meeting, there also was a question about whether you do larvicide treatment throughout the whole season. Just because that seems to be more preferable as a way to control the mosquitoes. You talked a little bit about May and June for a particular species, but do you do it throughout the year?
Yes, so we will perform larval inspections in both wetlands. And of course, now we're doing the applications in the catch basins as well. So as that starts to wind down into the middle part of August, we'll start going back to wetland areas. If there are large tire piles, for example, some of our communities where there's so many tires we can only take so much at one time, we'll treat those as well as needed. And then going to into the fall months, generally we will go through any wetland areas that we do have database and check them one more time in the fall to try to get any larvae that are active, prior to them going to their hibernation.
One of the things that we want to do as a Board of Health is coordinate any treatment on public property, our parks and athletic fields, as well as coordinate with the school district. So at this point, my assumption is that none of those properties would be treated at this point.
Are you referring to the spraying program?
Correct, yes.
Yes, you are correct. We would only go on those properties if we were requested by town departments such as health, selectmen, recreation, et cetera. So those are only done when we get the official request come through.
Okay, and I think you've seen our four level, policy. So I think when we get to level 3, we would be in touch with you and discuss making a request.
Sure.
And I think that would be where, there's been virus detected in surrounding communities, not necessarily in Bolton,
Right.
but, Clinton or Stowe. And obviously we would, look for your input on what makes the most sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, as you would imagine, last year with the Triple E crisis, we did a lot of coordination with our boards of health, our school departments, recreation departments, et cetera. I think last year we sprayed nearly 100 schools in all of our member communities. So there is the Children's Protection Act provisions we do need to follow, but our director of operations is well versed in that process. There's some language that has to be included on the town's IPM plan online. And then there's certain postings that have to go out to parents, and then postings on the property as well. But again, we assist with all of that information, and the postings actually we will perform for the town as well. So if we get to that point, we have a pretty good streamlined process already in place.
Okay. Yeah, let's hope we don't, but great.
Tim, I have a few other questions that I've been kind of receiving throughout the week that I just kind of want to ask out there, and there are a couple others in the chat.
Okay.
So I'll start with some of the ones that I have here. If a resident does not opt to be excluded or request spraying, so basically if a resident does not do anything, what happens to those houses?
At this point in time, basically nothing. Again, the spray program, we're really trying to keep it as close to the properties that are requesting it as possible. In a lot of our other communities, we will go beyond those property borders, but, until such time that, the town of Bolton and its residents are more comfortable with that spraying program, we are limiting that spray program as much as we possibly can.
Okay. Does Central Mass Mosquito Control do any aerial spraying?
We do not do any applications by aircraft. All of our spraying is done by truck-mounted equipment. The aircraft spraying that was done last year is coordinated through Mass Department of Public Health and Mass Department of Agricultural Resources. We act as a little bit of the on-the-ground eyes and ears, if you will, but those decisions are well beyond our scope. So there's nothing that we do with the aircraft as far as the spray program goes.
Okay. How often does surveillance take place when a resident requests a spray? So if someone requests a spraying and it's determined that they need the spray, does the surveillance continue on at that address for the duration of the season?
We don't do surveillance at specific addresses for the spray program. However, we do look at our light trap counts. You may recall a few months ago when we had some information going out, I mentioned landing counts, which would be when the technicians would go out just prior to spraying and count the number of mosquitoes that land on them. That is a good avenue for us to gather surveillance at the time. However, we do suspend those landing counts when viruses has been identified in the state for the protection of our staff. So we did suspend those on July 6th. So unfortunately, with Bolton coming in a little bit late, we did not get any landing counts performed in town this year. However, we did several hundred in all of our other member communities prior to the suspension of the landing counts.
This is a sort of a question that comes from the chat and then kind of combined with one that I have. It says, can we rely on the weekly list to know the streets where spraying will occur? And then to kind of add to that, it looks like when I looked at the calendar, Bolton seems to be on Monday nights. Did I miss another date, or is it something that residents should only check the calendar on Mondays because that's when Bolton is?
Well, I suggest they check every night, but we have had internal discussions that we're going to do our very best to stick to the schedule that we have published. Because again, this is new for the town of Bolton. It's new for its residents. In some of our other communities, if, for example, there's a special request that comes in for, virus control, we may go off schedule. However, we're going to stick to the schedule, Monday nights for Bolton. And yes, the published list is going to be the areas that we have scheduled for that evening. That list gets on our website generally by 3 o'clock each afternoon. And that same list is also with an answering service that residents can call our main number after 3:30 each day to hear a listing. So you don't need to have internet access to get that information. A phone would be able to get you right there.
How often are you updated from the state when an exclusion is filed? So say a resident files an exclusion today, how long does that take to get to you guys? And is that enough time to hit the no spray from the next time we're on the list?
Generally, yes. The regulations state 14 days from the date of the application. However, it's been my experience that at the longest, it's taken 2 to 3 days to get on the list, and that would only be if a resident requested after the close of business on Friday, and we would then get it Monday morning. So again, when they're done electronically, they come to our office usually within a few minutes, and in most cases, I can get them on same day, as well as on the tablets and the vehicles. However, if it's done by postal mail, of course, there is going to be an additional delay, you know, for the delivery and then subsequent notification of our office.
Okay. Question, how would your office handle a spray request from a resident if they live in a road that is not yet recognized by the town? Is it
That
by
doesn't happen. Yeah, that doesn't happen too often, but I would suspect unless it was a private road and or there were significant number of exclusions in that area, most likely we would still treat it as a public way. And most likely, again, if we had access, we would be able to do the treatment.
We have some streets in town that are in the process of building new developments. And so some of those, there are residents that live there who may request it. It's just that depending on how you pull your street listing, they may or may not show as an active street. I hope I'm saying that correctly.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. Yeah, technically, we're using ArcGIS and it does get updated fairly frequently. So if we get a service request come through, the nice part about doing the request online is the resident puts in their address and then a map shows up that pins the location. In 99 times out of 100, the location is accurate. But in this instance, if, for example, the pin does not come up in the right spot, they do have the ability to move the pin to where their property actually is. If, of course, we then see a pin that looks to us to be somewhere out in the wilderness, you know, in other words, no streets are listed. If a email has been provided, we would just reach out to that resident to confirm their actual address and then, you know, give us a little better idea on their location.
Okay. Another question on the chat is, how would a resident find out if they are treating a catch basin near an excluded property?
A catch basin would not necessarily be part of the exclusion because we're doing them. It's part of the public way. It's on the public streets. And frankly, I wouldn't see any reason to exclude a catch basin treatment. The product we're using called methoprene is extremely safe for people, for you know, amphibians, dogs, cats. I mean, it's used in flea and tick treatments that go on the fur of the animals themselves. So exposure to methoprene for people is not considered to be a problem.
Okay. Other concerns that, and Tim, you and I can talk offline about this, is that how would someone check every day? I mean, that's a lot to ask. So if Bolton is on the schedule for Mondays, you know, to have, even you know, if there's a way, again, I think you and I will take this offline and we'll come up with a plan, but we'll address that at a later time. Okay. I think that's all the questions in the chat. No, this will be if a person has a hammerhead lot, is the 10-foot wide connection to the main road sprayed?
If it's a request property, then most likely yes. If it's an exclusion property, obviously we would not spray that, and also would probably give a bit more of a buffer around the size of the lot. The advantage to the system we're using now is not only do the tablets have the exclusion properties listed, but they have the outline of the lots themselves. So if, for example, some lots might back up to a street behind them, I know in some instances in some towns, they'll have frontage on 2 different streets, for example. So the advantage of what we're currently doing now is the technicians can see where the property boundaries are if it bounds another street. And the system also gives both audible and visual warnings as they're approaching that exclusion property. So, and we carry paperless with the vehicles as well in case, you know, the system for some reason crashes.
I know you talked about you have not found any mosquitoes to date with AAA, but what happens if a person in town or in a local town has been tested positive, and then we find out that there are EEE mosquitoes in town? What processes will happen?
Well, the first thing is whether it's a mosquito collection or a human, the local Board of Health is going to get notified first from Mass Department of Public Health. And then generally Mass Public Health will call us next. On occasion, I get a call from the local Board of Health before that time. But after that, it starts to kick off a process where discussion begins with the local boards of health to determine what is the best response at that time. In order for us to even recommend spraying, we need to have sufficient mosquito numbers. We need to have weather conditions that are appropriate. You know, we can identify virus going well into September and October, where nighttime temperatures, you know, the daytime temperatures don't even get into the 50s. There's label restrictions. There's just good common sense practices. In those instances, and it has happened, we have just recommended personal protection measures, putting out press releases, you know, social media blasts, etc. But any virus identification, the first thing we do is begin our communication with our town, make a recommendation, and then the town either accepts the recommendation, modifies the recommendation, or, you know, discards the recommendation, and we always follow the wishes of the town.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to read. It looks like someone has a question, and then we'll kind of see if we can wrap it up a little bit. More specifics on exclusion properties and buffer zones.
Well, the buffer zones around exclusion property are going to be variable because the technicians need to take into account wind direction, wind speed. On a general basis, especially in a town such as Bolton, again, being, you know, a very new town, this is new for a lot of people. We understand there's a lot of angst about this program. They're going to give fairly large buffers around these exclusion properties. In the beginning, of course, I did mention that we have sprayed 34 service requests where we've canceled 24. So, you know, as you can see, the cancellations are nearly approaching what we've actually been able to spray. So we are being as careful as we possibly can. The technicians know that the last thing they want to have happen is the office getting a resident calling in the morning, being angry about an application, and then, of course, the office, you know, having to speak to them about, you know, being more of a careful applicator, et cetera. So, you know, I'm very happy to say that in all the communities we work, you know, we get good information out to our exclusions, and for the most part get very few complaints, if any. And certainly residents have the ability to do a Freedom of Information Act to the Pesticide Bureau to find out exactly how many complaints we've received over the years. And honestly, I would encourage them to do that.
Okay, we'll do the last question. What is being done to educate the correlations between childhood cancer and exposure to pesticides? What is being done to protect children and young individuals of childbearing age from pesticide exposure?
Well, the pesticide we use is called edofenprox. It's applied at a 4% solution, and it is not a known human carcinogen. But also you have to understand risk. Risk of anything is a factor of exposure and toxicity. The toxicity of our pesticide is very low. Again, it's not a cancer-causing compound. And also the exposure, especially for an exclusion property, would be 0. So therefore, there would be no risk for an individual from our spray program if they excluded their property, the technician did their due diligence and located that property. And also the product we use is a non-residual pesticide. So when we do the applications at night, if any foliage, insects, et cetera, were tested the very next day, they would not be able to find any residues of our pesticides down to the parts per billion. And that is something that has been done, and information is available on that. So, you know, we are a public health agency. We deal with the risk-benefit ratio. What is the greater risk? What is the greater benefit? In October, when Triple E is flying and temperatures are not appropriate for spraying, frankly, the risk of spraying is greater than the risk of the virus. Therefore, we would not recommend spraying, would not be effective, and the risk for unintended consequences could theoretically be higher. So again, there's a lot of factors that go into the applications that we do, both in larval control as well as adult control.
Thank you. There was one, it looks like perhaps a follow-up question to where you were talking about the buffer zones. It says, please define quote unquote fairly large.
I can't honestly, because the technicians are going to make that determination. If they're approaching a spray property, they have not been alerted yet by their tablets. The tablets give a 200-foot notification, but yet the spray direction is going in the direction of that exclusion property. They're going to stop well before that that property line. All of our trucks do carry weather stations that link right up to their tablets that give them on the fly wind speed, wind direction, relative humidity, as well as temperature. So again, they're very well educated on how to spray, where not to spray. We always tell them that once they turn that switch on and the spray leaves the nozzle, they're responsible for where it goes. So if ever they have a question about where they're spraying, whether it's too close to an exclusion, a sensitive habitat, et cetera, they know that they will turn that request back into us so that we can then look at the situation and determine, if anything is feasibly possible. And again, as I mentioned, we've already canceled out a fair number of the spray requests in Bolton for that very reason.
Okay, thank you. One quick thing here. Cindy, I'm trying to unmute you. I see your hand up. If you can unmute your call, we can take your question. Unmute your phone or computer. All right, so my apologies, Cindy. I will follow up with you on a separate email. Hopefully I can address your issue. I do see your hand.
I got it unmuted.
There you are. Okay.
Okay.
So this will be
the last one.
Yes.
I know. So my only concern, like with the catch basin thing, I know you said it's safe for animals and everything, and it probably, there probably isn't even one near my property. I don't know. I'm just curious how to find out, because a couple weeks ago, our dog broke out in hives, severe hives that needed a vet visit, and we couldn't find anything that she was exposed to. And it probably wasn't anything that would have been involved with spraying, but for my own peace of mind, like, how would I find out if anything was being sprayed or whatever? And like, if I wanted to make sure my animals are kept in, like from the street spraying, I would know, okay, I don't want to walk on that street when they're spraying. But if you're treating catch basins, would it be during the day or also at night? And just so I could make sure my pets and family are inside.
Yeah, the catch basins are treated during the day. It's a dry product. It looks like rabbit pellets that we just drop right into the catch basin through the storm grate at the top. So again, these are not open systems. These are enclosed systems.
Okay.
If there is an outfall, because some of these catch basins do have outfalls, the pesticide we use called methoprene breaks down extremely rapidly in sunlight. So it's not a good product for us to use in wetlands because, of course, even if it doesn't have direct sunlight, wetlands still get sunlight. But in the catch basins, those storm drains, they're very dark, they're very dank. So it's a very good product for us in those areas. But again,
and that's dropped, not sprayed, right?
Yes, it's a dry formulation that's just dropped right into the basin.
Okay.
And if residents do have questions on catch basins treated in their area, simple email to our office. We can pull the maps up and generate a screenshot pretty quickly.
Okay, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Okay. I know I said that would be the last question. We did have somebody join the meeting late and has asked a question that we have not addressed yet, and I probably should have added on my list of questions. When will and I know I've put it on the Board of Health webpage. There is a direct link to the tire recycling program, but when we used to start to publicize and outreach the tire cleanup as part of the mosquito control program?
I did see it on the Board of Health website, so thank you for that. Frankly, we do struggle a bit with getting some of the word out about parts of our program. We do rely on our local contacts, boards of health, town clerks, etc. We certainly have a social media, both with Twitter and Facebook, that we encourage people to follow as well. The summertime, we do go a bit of on hiatus for that program. Any information we get, we still database. And I think this summer we have been able to pull in 3 collections. However, once the summer months wind down, we get everybody back on a day shift, those tire collections will start up again in earnest. But if anyone has ideas on how we can get the word out, I'm always all ears about that, because, again, we want to get information out about our program, the services that we perform, as well as, answer any questions that we possibly can.
Like I said, when I did put that on the page, I did send it out to anybody who has signed up through the Board of Health news and announcements. So everybody would have gotten a link to that.
Great, thank you.
So at this time, I think I'll defer to Chris, and Scott. That Scott, do you feel we've answered what you were looking to have Tim on the call for?
Yes, absolutely. Tim, thank you very much for all the information and detail you've provided, and we look forward to coordinating with you throughout the season, and hopefully we don't have any virus threats.
Yeah, we're definitely keeping our fingers crossed on that. And, I encourage residents to contact us directly if they like for questions, or, I don't want to give any more work to Kristen and the board, because I know you guys have a lot on your plate already, but if they're more comfortable going through the department, that's absolutely fine as well. Just as a final note, we did have a resident reach out. I apologize, they don't have the location, about possibly doing some ditch cleaning on their property. So information is starting to slowly trickle out about the other services that we have. So we are encouraged by, the fact that people are starting to get the word out, and we're always here to answer questions and provide, as much information as we possibly can.
Okay, thank you all. I think a lot of these names I see you guys have joined for the mosquito discussion. So, you know where to find me at Town Hall with questions. And I will, the minutes are generally posted every 2 weeks for these, so we will have the full recap. But in the meantime, please check out the Board of Health page. There's a drop down for services, the tire recycling program, and just, information about the Central Mass Mosquito Control Program that the town has joined now. So, okay. So moving on to the next agenda item. I'll make sure everyone's unmuted. So coronavirus updates. Just on top, the very top thing I have, Bill, I don't know if you know this information. I have a call and an email into Jim Garaffi. For weeks, Bolton had no change in their numbers. The state was reporting us at 11, but Neshoba board was always reporting us at 16. But those numbers never changed for 4 or 5 weeks. So now Bolton has gone to 17, and it, based on the email I sent out the other day, I did not check the state site. So it does look like we've had a surge, but I really don't think we have. Do you know if there's a reason why the numbers are different, what the state has versus what Neshoba board has?
I have no idea.
You have no idea. Okay, I do have an email into
and Jim really keep an eye
Jim,
on
so
numbers.
I will call him tomorrow, because I believe that, I mean, it does, when I sent out the memo, it did look a little concerning, but I really don't, I still believe we just had an increase of 1 person from the last, in the last 6 to 8 weeks, or 6 weeks probably. So I think that's great for Bolton. We're doing a great job. Probably the biggest thing to fall in the category of coronavirus is the state has set up a website which you can log a complaint about if you see a business, if you just not following proper protocols, and there was a business in Bolton that had a complaint against them. So with that being said, per the chief in the meeting we had back in May, the chief issued a violation to that business owner. But one question we do, actually, before I go on, Bill, do you have any additional follow-up to that? Chief Nelson, again, has issued the fines to that business.
No, just those three, the one site visit I did and the two drive-bys, that information's been logged, and I don't know what the police found when they got there, but again, it's a busy road. I go by there often, so my eyes are always on the place.
So the chief has addressed that.
So now, just to intervene very quickly here.
Yes.
So, but the standing protocol is that the warning comes from the police department, and then followed by the fine.
That we can, so in looking back on the meeting minutes, yes, but whereas the complaint the way the state filed the complaint went to Neshoba Associated Boards of Health. It did not come to Bolton. So Neshoba Associated Boards issued the violation warning, which Bill did. And so that's sort of I guess we did not know that would happen.
Right.
Actually,
I just want to be clear in the process. I mean,
yeah, so the process would be first a written or, a discussion education that is obviously everybody's objective into wearing a mask. But I believe now we should probably discuss and maybe even take a vote in this meeting. Is there a difference of procedure if the complaint goes to Neshoba versus the complaint if the police should see something or be called to something? And also, if a fine is issued, does it go straight to $300, or are we structuring a fine based on a certain dollar amount to get to $300?
Good question.
Got a situation here that we are authorized by law the fine to be as much as 300.
Correct.
We don't run a courthouse here. I think you'll find we have to carry the complaint, and a judge would adjudicate whether that fine was appropriate or something less. A lot of people don't want to go through that aggravation, so they agree with the local board to pay whatever. It's agreeable, but if the person's not agreeable, I don't think we are able to enforce that ourselves. We can ask the court to levy a fine.
That
No,
may be
Chris,
good.
this actually came up when you were convalescing. So we did actually give the police department authority to do this and actually issue the fines.
Yep.
Through Governor Baker's office when this whole thing kind of
The order,
struck.
correct.
I guess the only thing, I guess the way it worked in my mind is a warning is going to carry a little bit more weight coming from a cop, I think, than from one of us.
Okay.
So I don't know how the board feels, but if there's going to be a warning, I think, again, I think it's terrific that, Bill can warn them too, because then the next thing that's going to happen is the cop's going to warn them. So it's kind of I don't know. That's my feeling.
Yeah, I think we should talk to the police department. Chris, I know like in housing inspections, if we're going to issue a fine, it's upon conviction in a housing court, but I don't know if the police have like a ticketing power in this instance. That might be something that can be assessed immediately on the spot. I don't know. That might be something they need to answer for us.
Well, they can issue the ticket, and if you wish not to challenge it, you send the money to the courthouse.
Yep.
That's the end of it.
Like a speeding
If you
ticket.
don't think you're being treated fairly, the police department cannot come at you and demand the money. They have to take their citation and file it with the court, then you're called to court.
Yep.
And you can make your argument with the judge.
Yep.
Again, in speaking with, I asked the police chief just last week before I heard about this, had they had to issue any fines to any residents or visitors to town yet? And the answer was no. So I believe this isn't a common occurrence, but we just need to kind of have it in place that should it happen, what steps, is the warning again, I think the first question is, if Neshoba issues a warning, does that come do I get notified and then we let the police know and they can go down and speak to them immediately, and then that is the police warning? And then if it continues again from either any level of complaint, does it then go into the fines, one fine or a structured fine?
Kristen, I think whether the complaint comes to Bolton or Neshoba, I think Bolton would really pursue it. I mean, the towns would levy tickets or fines. Neshoba doesn't necessarily. We got that complaint from the state. I did do the initial site visit. I did speak to the owner. I did hand them the 2-page document that requires masks be worn. To me, that's the first step. That's the educational step. It's this is your first chance step. But again, twice in a week or two, I saw the same violation.
Right.
That's
I
when
think we kind of took it as that it was nothing was really being done. So, all right. So when the complaint comes in either through Neshoba or to Bolton, both warnings, it sounds like, Bill can, or Neshoba can issue, that educational piece, the documents, remind everybody this is the governor's order. But again, the police will also send the police in to do that. And so what would happen then upon second observation of a violation?
I think that's really how far the board wants to go with that. I know Lancaster's wrestling with this now. Like how many warnings do you give?
And to be honest, I did some research. I was just pulling up many different towns in the area, in the state, trying to find, I think I picked 10 different towns the other day, trying to find their structure to be able to say, this is what this town is doing. And I just really couldn't find it. I don't know if people aren't publicized, if I'm just not looking in the right place. I'm going to the town web pages, to the Board of Health, searching face coverings, fines. So it really, I can't unfortunately suggest what others are doing. So I think it does need to be a decision that the board will make. And we probably should get a vote on this evening to put into place with the police department so they know what they're dealing with.
Also, we could email, DPH has a couple of contacts that have gotten back to us with answers to questions within hours. So, if we want clarification on that process.
I could do that too. They have gotten back to me on that.
Mike, is it Mike? Mike.
I just send it to the person who sends the meeting makers out,
Yep.
name, and they forward it to whoever the correct appropriate question is.
Yep. So that
Which
might be a good
I'm
way to go.
perfectly fine to do that. Unfortunately, that just means we're now waiting till the second week of August to put a plan in place if it needs to be voted on. So
Well,
if the
so
board
let
would
me ask-
prefer to
let me
do
ask-
that, then we'll wait.
Well, so we have a semi-form plan now, which is basically
Right.
warning, then fine. I think if I understand what we're saying, is we're proposing if the complaint comes to Neshoba first, then Bill is the one who issues the warning. I think at the same time, he would also notify the police department. And then I guess the question is, do we want to do a Neshoba warning, cop warning, fine, or do we want to do Neshoba warning, cop and fine? I mean,
I like the Neshoba and or police. I think each should, if the police get it first, then but if Neshoba gets it, we should also have the police, maybe the police go do it. It comes from them directly. And then it's what happens after that.
Yeah, Jim has also drafted a pretty decent letter to folks that have repeat violations. So the Board of Health could certainly, send the owner of an establishment, a letter putting them on notice also.
Okay. And would Jim be able to send me that tomorrow? Would that be something that will go the reverse way, that if the police issue a warning that I should send to you guys, maybe, I just want to make sure that there's consistent wording. I believe the police chief in Bolton has taken the wording from the state. So
Yep.
I don't think that, but if we could just have that, if you could just get me that information so I have it.
Yeah, I could email that to you.
Okay.
It may be Thursday though.
Okay, that's fine. So Neshoba and police, and then the fine, and then are we open? What does the board feel the appropriate fine process should be?
I mean, I'm fine with warning, then fine. I mean, that's
What fine?
how we
Like,
kind of
are you
laid
going
it
right to
out. We
three?
laid it out. I think the wrinkle that I didn't anticipate was that it might be Bill or another Neshoba sanitarian issuing the warning.
But is the
And I
first
think-
fine $300?
Yeah, you know, we can revisit that, but at least that's what we already have established, what we voted, and it's, you know, we're not going to make 18, you know, a bunch of motions to change something. I mean, I think it merits thought. I mean, I hope this only happens a couple of times, that people don't misbehave. But I say we roll with what we got, just so that we have something. And if you want to put it on the next agenda, and we don't find ourselves talking about something like sort of mass mosquito or something like that, we can talk about it. And then by then get more input from Jim, from even Bumper perhaps, and maybe even DPH.
Staying on the topic of masks, and I believe I'm going to need to send a letter out. There's some activity around the baseball field right now with a one specific field. When the selectmen are driving by, they're seeing people standing in larger groups, the players not having the proper face coverings, coaches not having the face coverings. There was a Parks and Rec call last week in which the team, this team was on the call. Is not a Bolton team, but a team from an outside that uses our field, uses the town field. And they're just not really following the protocol that the governor has put out. Baseball is an approved sport. They can play. But, you know, Bumper has stated that, you know, he can't have a uniformed police officer there every time a baseball game is happening. That doesn't make any sense for him. They could pay for a police detail if they wanted to, and then you would have a police officer overlooking. Chris, I think this is the email that Dawn sent this morning to you. I don't know if you had a chance to read it. It was kind of lengthy. So how does the board want to address this particular organization in telling them you need, you know, I don't know, I don't really, I guess, you know, what else am I saying? I've
So
already sent.
I think what else you're saying is that, so this is a group that's been already warned, if I read this correctly. So I guess the question
I would
is,
say that they've been warned by, say, the police. I believe that they have been brought into a Parks and Rec meeting on face coverings in the fields, you know, at the public parks in the fields. And from what that happened that meeting, there was really no follow-up to it. Oh, we lost Bill. Oh no, he's still there.
I think he's letting the dog out.
Yeah, sorry, I see it now.
So I think, so basically, let me, so can you forward this email to Scott and Chris?
Yeah.
Because I think it really almost, you know, Bumper's got it laid out, I think, very well.
Okay.
Take it to Parks and Rec. They talk to the groups. Ask Ally to keep you in the loop to find out what their reply is. I mean, the foolish thing is that they're so visible where they're playing that they don't comply, we're going to know about it really quickly.
Correct.
And if it's a function of issuing them a fine on a night they're there, and if they come back the next night and they do the same thing, then we issue them another fine. You know, then I think we can escalate. You know, I think a detail would be an escalation to me, not a first move.
Correct.
So I think we just got to lay it out here. Makes a lot of sense.
So should I can create another document sent directly to this group on Bolton Board of Health letterhead and get that over immediately, because obviously if I mail it, you know, it's already going to be Wednesday tomorrow. They have games this weekend, so we get it to them as soon as we can. So
absolutely,
I will go ahead and draft that. I will have somebody at town hall just quickly scan it. It's going to be based similar off the one I did last week that sent off the news and announcements, but it'll be addressed to the specific group, at reminding them, letting them know the Board of Health is speaking to them directly. But if compliance is not there, then they're not going to be allowed to use the field.
correct.
That is,
Right.
That's the most sensible thing.
Right.
We can chase this fine nonsense back and forth to the Clinton courthouse till the snow flies. But you explain to them, and Park and Rec, I don't know who would be in charge of that. The selectmen are in charge of town properties. Park and Rec sort of take care of the fields.
Mhm.
Board of Health, but it'll be a uniform decision by the town of Bolton that you are no longer allowed to use the field.
Okay.
Go home. That will get to them real fast.
Sure.
Okay. So I will draft that. And again, it will be added. It falls into the coronavirus discussion on the meeting, so we'll have it at the next meeting. So again, I just want to just make sure. So I'm going to draft a letter stating that the Board of Health states masks must be worn in accordance to the state guidelines. If compliance of this is, if there's no compliance, there will be loss of field use in town.
If I could just add on to this, could we jump back to the business that's being non-compliant? Lancaster is actually considering shutting down a business for X period of time because of repeated violations. So I don't even know if they've maybe tried the fine and that's not working. So next step, that may be a possibility, but again, we'd want to clarify that with the state, I think. But they're prepared to go that far.
Yeah, I think that's a very good idea, Bill. And if you happen to go by and you talk to them, say, hey, look, Al, I don't want to be the one that comes down and tells you to lock the door. For God's sakes, put on your masks and the problem all goes away.
Right.
Plain and simply. Other than that,
Yep.
it could be a real mess.
Yep.
And basically that's what I did years ago with that group up on Bolton Woods Way. I just, please pump your tanks. Because if they plug up and the systems fail, you got a hell of a mess.
Yep.
And they were very good about cooperating.
All right, I will also forward that email, Scott and Chris, to you guys so you can read it, and then just please let me know your thoughts. I'll send that as soon as I can before, just when the meeting ends. If there's anything, you want specifically me to add to the letter, I will do that. I do need to update Dawn tomorrow morning with what was decided at this meeting tonight about this. So, and I'm sure he will be updating the selectmen with that information.
Yeah, that'd be very good. I'd like to have Don involved
Yeah.
signing on to this.
Yeah, like I said, police chief outlined his email, and John is in agreements that he would recommend. Police chief, I would recommend Parks and Rec requires the organization to hire a detail officer to monitor face covering compliance. Whether they do that, but it's part of the recommendation to, you need to. This is the warning, and compliance is this or loss of field. Hopefully, I covered all of it with that.
Like I said, I'm not too worried about this. We've got plenty of time to figure it out as it kind of rolls on. So
Right. I think with the baseball, it's just that because they're there all the time, and they're right there by the side of the road, and
right.
It's very visible. So I mean, I
think we did hear some chatter about something down on Forest Mill, the Forest Mill fields, and it's gonna happen.
That's another thing. Soccer was just approved to play games last week, so you will start to see emails coming in as people go. I told Don today, you'll probably see people going to the transfer station now, also reporting in that they're seeing soccer games at the field, and they need to comply.
Yep, I agree. It's
Okay.
not that hard. It's not that hard. I've got to do it 100 times every day, and I don't like it, but I do
Yep,
it.
we wear them at town hall.
Yeah.
Also going with the coronavirus bill, animal adventures.
Before we jump to that, just a quick question on
Sure.
setting agenda on the mass complaints.
Yep.
The other towns that I work in, if we're talking the educational visit, we're not talking street address. Lancaster has chosen repeat violators would be placed on the agenda by street address.
Okay.
Just looking for a feeling. We don't have to discuss this now, but it's something to think about, that if we have a continued issue, would we list that address on the agenda versus just a general mass complaint? Because it's about negative press. Good or bad, it's public record. So just something to think about, that if we do continue to have an issue, shall we place them on the agenda as a specific item?
I think I'd say yes. You know, again, we can decide how many violations or how, you know, but
Yeah, I think you're going to find that places are either going to get the hint the first visit, or you're going to have
Right.
continued visits. So it's going to go either way. You know, I don't think there's going to be a lot of in between.
Okay. Let's hope we don't have any more. Let's go.
unfortunately, I think we will.
Yes.
Overall, Bolton's been great. I think I've only got that one in Berlin. I've been out on 5, and Lancaster's got to have 4 or 5, I think.
Oh, look at us.
Yeah, Bolton's not.
There you go. We're rule followers.
All right. Do you want to talk about the animal adventures?
Well, yeah, again, early stage of investigation. I don't know who sent the original email, but apparently.
So Jenny sent the email to a couple of us and just said,
Yes.
Mike and Erica from the town standpoint, just asking if we were aware. If you go to their website, they're having a school, I guess school. Is that the word I want to use?
Well, yeah, I guess it's called the Zoo Academy. So,
Zoo Academy.
you know, I begin to look at septic capacity and well use. I had a very long discussion with the owner today. Told him we really need to see numbers in print on employees and patrons per day, how many days a week, so that, again, we can kind of take a look at the septic capacity and whether or not they trigger a public water supply. The septic, apparently, you know, the system was designed for the home that was there and the business. Apparently, the home is not being occupied. It's just the business that's on that site. But again, not knowing that, I told him to put everything in writing so that we could review it. And you know, we'll take a closer look at it once we have those numbers in place.
Okay, sounds good.
And Kristen, I don't know if you had any mass questions on that site.
You know, I was poking around their website and it did indicate that masks are not required.
Yeah,
The
my
website
understanding.
actually said they're not required,
Correct.
My understanding is if you're outside
and you're 6 feet apart, though, right?
then you would not necessarily need a mask. But
I mean,
as far as I know, inside you would, period.
so if, you know, if someone wants to just take a look at that, I mean, I feel it may just kind of be a typo and I looked at it. But even if you look at the state guidelines for zoos and places such, you know, animal places like this, masks they're still asking people to wear a mask. It's, you know, even though there's no, kind of the same thing going back to the baseball field. You're outside, but you know, if you're social distant, you're fine, but you should still wear them, right? I mean, it's kind of what we're, you know, we're trying to get here. So
We got to remember, all our superiors aren't too well organized on this either. And is mask required or just social distancing? You're inside, you need the mask regardless. You're outside, if you can stay 6 feet away from people, you don't. It gets kicked back and forth and back and forth. Fact is, you'll never make things worse by wearing a mask, even if you're far away from people. And let's encourage everybody to wear a mask. And we get into the fine print of enforcement, try to get the state to help us with it.
okay.
There's no, wait a second. I'm sorry, I'm looking at this thing right now. It's like, is this like a legitimate school?
That's kind of the question that, like I said, I have the, Bill, I did take photos of their septic plan. It's on they were on my cell phone, their photos. I can try to share them if you need to look at them now. If not, I can email them.
I think we will be discussing this at a future meeting once we get a response from the owner on description of use.
Okay. The other thing,
I think you know, Ed admitted that, you know, his marketing person maybe makes it sound like more than it is. It sounds like it's very similar to what he does there now. I mean, he obviously educates as people visit his facility, teaches them about the animals, etc. But this would be slightly more defined, where you know, a child would spend, you know, X hours there in more of an instructional environment. But again, sounded like relatively small numbers. But again, that's something we need to see in print before we can really discuss it.
you know, I do think there's probably more individuals and families looking at this now, given
Yes.
the next school year. So
Yep.
you're right. He may have had this in the past and it just kind of did its thing. But I think a lot of
Well,
families
I don't
maybe.
think he's had this specific type of proposal before. Obviously, his numbers are way down with what's going on. So again, I think he's just trying to maybe generate some interest in what he does there.
Well, yeah, I think it definitely should be on our next agenda because it's a pretty it looks like it's pretty comprehensive.
It does, but talking to him, it didn't sound as comprehensive.
Yeah. All right.
So again,
All right.
we need from him what he's doing, with how many
Yeah.
people and how often, and
Well, and I have to believe that there's other entities that have got to kind of weigh in on this other than us. I mean, isn't there like how do we know they're actually who certifies them to teach? I mean,
well, again, I think the title and the marketing makes it sound like a substitute for school. This is truly education on animals. It's not an attempt to teach math, science, history, to my knowledge. It's truly an educational experience, kind of in the biology end of things.
Are you still on the website, Chris?
yeah,
Yes.
I mean,
If you
full
look at
time is
that-
from like 8 o'clock to 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
But I believe it mentions something about teaching those other subjects
Well,
within.
It
Also-
does. It does.
Wrong.
It says, yes, of course, we'll still be doing coursework in math, English, history, and all the other state required curriculum.
Can I retract my last statement?
Yes.
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
But again, I'm going on my discussion. I must have talked to the owner for at least 30 minutes today.
Yeah.
So
I do
again,
I get
think that Jenny has
that's the
sent it
newest
to
thing in my
Mike,
brain.
we
to Mike and
definitely
Erica
take a
as
close look at
well,
this.
so I can follow up with town to see
Yeah.
if there's any other.
I guess he needs to clarify what he's doing.
Exactly. We need more info.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay, so
Okay.
does that close that out for the moment?
Yeah, I think we'll bump that to
I don't
next.
have anything else on coronavirus. The state travel ban when it goes into effect August 1st.
Yeah, that's actually gonna mess up some people.
That's going to cost
We're
some.
not gonna mess them up, but I've already got guys taking vacations and things who are like, yeah, I've got to get tested when I get back. I'm like, stay away from me.
Mhm.
Okay, well then, if that's the case, so let's move
That's
on.
all I have.
What?
So that's all I have.
Okay. You can come back in on the camera too if you want, Kristen.
No, I'm good. I take notes now.
All right, 356 Main Street, continue discussion. I saw that we had that one letter from Neil in the packet. Is that something we should just kick to the next meeting? Because I did not get a chance to look at it. Frankly, I had a chance to think about
We
it.
did get a letter, an email from the engineer today. They don't have all the information they want to present to the board, but I kept it on the agenda because Neil did submit the forms that would normally go to the state to apply for a modified flow. And even though Title V says that the state would review a modified flow once the local board approves it, the new forms clearly specify that if you're proposing a flow that's not in Title V for a system that hasn't gone in yet, the state needs to look at it. But modification to existing system capacity is solely the Board of Health's responsibility. So I just wanted to let the board know that this discussion will stay with the board and not be subject to DEP review once we get the information from the engineer and owner.
That's fine. Yeah, because I was going to say, let's push this to next because obviously we haven't heard back from Bruce in terms of what he's actually proposing. And in my mind, that's where we have to start.
Yep.
You notice anything that might be kind of a dead cat on a local basis? The state decides, local board.
Yeah, that's the new normal, right? It's like just punt. All right, 149 West Berlin Road, well variance request.
I never saw an email from the owner. Did you, Kristen? He was going to try to get information to you for tonight's meeting.
I have not seen anything on that address.
Okay. This is a homeowner that wants to put a wellhead below grade adjacent to a driveway, and I said we'd need specs, and I thought I was going to email the information to Kristen and myself, but I have not seen it. Neither she.
You don't happen to know the homeowner's name?
Bob Ware, I think, 149.
I have not seen that. Sometimes they send me things without, you know, all the details, but I have not seen anything from that name.
Well, maybe they didn't have all their info together.
And so just out of curiosity, so this is an existing well or is this a new
I
well?
think it's an existing well, yes.
And why do they now?
I think it's location to proximity to the driveway. I don't want to speak for the owner, but I think maybe his well guy said this would be much safer below grade.
Right.
But I don't know that for sure.
Okay. No, I can sympathize with. I've got a neighbor who lives in a Jack Sargent special, and I tell him every year when he hits the thing, or like, just let's put it underground, you know? Okay. Moderator Way, grading, any new information on that? I mean, I know that.
I went out after that last rain. If it rained Thursday night, I was out there on Friday morning, and there is one small area of erosion in the 3-to-1 breakout slope on number 75. You know, spoke to the homeowners. I don't know if planning board's comprehensive look at drainage is going to include, you know, that area if they're just focused on the road, but you know, we'll just kind of wait to see how that plays out. But there is a small area of erosion in their breakout slope.
Okay. Well, in the spirit of that particular developer, there was a Facebook post yesterday or the day prior that my wife brought to my attention. A house on, I don't know if you guys have seen this at all or heard of it, but a house on Fry Road had a well fail, and as it turns out, it was an old well. And so bringing it to the board's attention because the line of questioning that was going in, the line of question that was going in, you know, in this chain that was going on is, you know, who witnesses this, who manages it, who whatever. So this is kind of more of an FYI, I guess, because my pushback, at least to my wife, was that, you know, we can't control, you know, we get the well water test results, and, you know, but we don't witness the actual pump installation or, you know, vet the particular well pump installer or any of that stuff. So just an FYI.
I know the well drillers are licensed by the state. Do you know if anybody observes the work of the people that put the pumps in? Once the piping goes in the house, the plumber looks at everything. And,
the plumber's only responsible for 10 feet out of the foundation.
right. So the
So,
guy's putting in the pumps and running the lines over. I'm not sure if anybody checks their work.
Right. That's a good point. I mean, basically the well installer, the well driller is licensed, but is there anybody, like, does Steve Sontag have a license of any kind that he needs for this?
Yeah.
Or, I mean,
I'm not aware of any requirements to be a pump installer. Again, I guess they're expected to hold industry standards, but you certainly hear about lowball bids using low gauge wire and, you know, cheap pumps, cheap wire, things that don't last. But I'm not aware of any standards per se.
yeah, I mean, it's you know, sadly it was a clear, you know, buyer beware. You know, it's like, oh, I found an inexpensive house in a new construction in Bolton. You know, what could possibly go wrong?
Who built it?
Again, like I said, I'm bringing to the board's attention because you know, someone may ask the question as to you know, what's our role in this, and you know, again, outside of water testing for potability to release the building permit, you know, or a location of the well, obviously, I don't think there's much we can do.
Yeah, we would look at location, quantity, and quality, but we're not intimately involved in the pump installation.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
go on.
What's that, Chris?
No, let's go forward. I
Okay.
just made a comment, but
Very
not
good.
going to solve it tonight.
6 McNulty Road. Any news?
I think Kristen, you
I haven't seen anything.
But has it been 30 days since you replied to that email?
Let me look at my email real quick.
Because it could be as simple as sending him another email just asking for an update.
June 27th. Today is the 28th.
Yeah, so if you don't mind, I'd reach out to him. He seemed like he was going to work with the board, but maybe just ask him on what the status is of the Title V required by that letter. And if you want to CC me with the request and his response, I'd appreciate it.
Got it.
Okay, rolling on to building permits. Bill, looks like you've taken care of all these. Anything to note? Anything of note?
No, there's just quite a few pools going in.
Oh yeah.
You know, a lot of building permits. Whenever I go to Berlin's Viewpoint, it seems like there's 15 things in my inbox. So it's
Yeah.
a lot going on.
I think everybody, this is I mean, I wasn't here. I mean, I've just been at the job for a year now, but I believe I missed the busy spring season last year, and I think it got pushed into early summer this year.
Yeah, the last few weeks have been incredibly busy, be it septic, building permits, all that right across the boards. Yep.
A lot of decks being redone. I am hearing that their contractors are having trouble getting lumber, so we'll see how much longer
I've
this.
tried to repair my mom's deck. It's like, nope, we don't have it. No 5 4 x 6 PT to be had.
Wow.
All right, moving on. Septic permits, 68 Spectacle Road, 58 Farm Road, and 64 Coventry Wood Road. 2 upgrades and a septic tank.
I think I have a plan for 68 Spectacle that came in today, Bill.
Yeah, I was hoping both plans would come to you, but again, they're pretty straightforward upgrades. I can certainly explain them.
I have one for 50. I've got both 58 Farm and 68 Spectacle. So let me switch over here. Hang on. Work Zoom to share these things. Share screen. Oops. This one is 68 Spectacle.
So this is a voluntary upgrade. Mitchell Motors has a garage out back. So the guys that were working in the garage were using a home bathroom. So this system is designed to handle the bedrooms in the home, but also those few employees that were using the house bath. So it's being treated as an upgrade, not an increase in flow, because that existing flow was there. So it's the garage, if they choose to place a bathroom in it, will pump to the new 2-compartment septic tank that's proposed to handle the house, and then we've got a gravity run to a Presby bed.
Great.
And I think they are looking for a groundwater reduction. Again, Presby can go as close to 2 feet. I think they're using a 3 here. I haven't fully reviewed the plan, but if the board's comfortable with it, if I complete my review, I will certainly draft a permit and allow work to continue.
Yep. Yeah, 3's all right.
Yeah, I don't have any issues with that.
Yeah, any questions on the design?
Nope. I mean, any comments of your own, Bill, or?
No, just that we see a lot of Presbys on upgrades. You know,
What's that offset?
they have a higher profile, they have a smaller footprint and
Right.
a lower breakout elevation. So they're attractive for designers. And then I haven't had any issues with them as far as longevity yet.
Hi. All right, awesome.
So we have, I think I can switch over to 68 Farm. Oh, look at that. I can. So this one is
Yeah, this one's across the street from Chris's house.
58 Farm.
Oh, this is the one the house in the corner there.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I saw.
This is replacement, again, a voluntary upgrade, but this system was obviously in trouble when we were out there doing the soil testing. And pretty simple bed, sandy soils, gravity system, really straightforward. Installer anxious to get started, could be as soon as next week. So again, if the board's good with that, we'll get a permit drafted up and get things started.
Now, is that going to be Al Cormier that puts that in, or?
Yes, yeah, he called me today to see if it was coming tonight. Yep.
Nice.
And any variances required?
No, this is This is, meets Title V and local regs.
That's a nice lot. It's nice level gravel
Yeah.
with a deep
And this
water
this
table.
will actually fill in that low spot in the backyard. Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, and then 64 Coventry Road septic tank, just,
That is the result of a Title V inspection, which we actually have on tonight's list.
okay, yep, as a conditional.
This
fact.
question was raised a couple meetings ago. The question the owner had was, could it be repaired or does it need to be replaced? And based on the description of the tank's condition in the report, the board decided a replacement would be the way to go. But the Title V is actually officially here for tonight also.
Okay. I'm satisfied with that. Then moving on to inspection reports. I believe we saw quite a few of these in our packets.
So yeah, what I did, again, and I think I finally figured out how to kind of make it work. I printed just the top pages,
Yep.
the ones that passed, because there was really no additional information with there. And then but I do have them all on file, so they will be printed and put into their Board of Health file, as well as saved to my computer. So there are, if anybody ever needs to see the full document, just let me know and I will email it over to you. But I do have 64 Coventry, is that ready to share, as that was the only one that had a conditional pass.
Yeah, that one needs a septic tank, which again, we just took care of the permit for that. But also has a garbage grinder, so that would get the standard letter requiring that be removed.
So I have a quick question about the sheets we got over, Kristen. So we have a 5 Still River Road on the list, and the Title V inspection we have for it is dated the year 2000. And I don't know if that's just something that came in with the report or
The one I have says 2020.
for 5 Still River
You know
Road.
what?
Yeah.
The one she sent me says 2000 on it. She must have attached just by address.
Oh, wait a
Okay.
minute. Let me see if there's a. Just the only one I have on record is the 2020.
I didn't look at that when she sent it.
Oh, but there was one done in 2000 because we actually sent a letter requiring a garbage grinder be removed. So there was a 2000 report. I guess she sent over the wrong one.
Okay.
So I will make sure she sends over the right one.
I saw that. I'm like, oh boy, why am I seeing something from 20 years ago?
That's a little over 30 days, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Oops.
So do we,
Someday I'll do
will it
that.
be carried to the next meeting for discussion, or,
I think we should.
okay.
Yeah.
What's that?
I mean,
I'm sorry, I missed that.
straightforward pass, but
My bad.
yeah.
That's 5 Still River?
5 Still River, correct.
Okay.
Do you want me to go back to the one for 64 Coventry, or was the conditional pass?
No, again, if it seems pretty clear to me. Again, inspection done, yeah, I think we've talked that one through already.
Yeah, that just needs a garbage grinder letter, and I'll take care of the tank permit.
Okay. Anybody have anything else to contribute tonight's meeting?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes from the prior meeting as written.
Thank you, sir. I second. All in favor?
I
Aye. Excellent. Thank you, Scott. Anything else?
I do, again, kind of, Scott, I didn't know that was your phone, that I didn't let you into the meeting earlier, but I was kind of talking to the Chris and Bill, and actually to Tim. I do believe we're going to get notification that there is triple E in town. There's a report and there's discussion that I've heard it through the grapevine that there's a perhaps a town employee who has contracted it. Details are being worked out. Again, because of HIPAA, not much we can share and speak about, but I will keep you guys updated as I hear information. And obviously, so my question would be, if that happens, we've had our meeting with Tim. Do we have, if we had to call a Board of Health meeting to discuss this with him, how does the board want to handle that? Do we want them, I need to
Well,
kind
so
of.
I guess my question is this. So how would we be notified?
So I did ask Tim that, and much like coronavirus and COVID, there is a contact tracing. So person who, if they go to the hospital and they test, information will come, they'll be asked, where were you? Where have you been? And then they'll try to pinpoint where that mosquito may have appeared. Obviously, just because somebody works in Bolton, works in Clinton, lives in Berlin, lives in Lancaster, you don't know where a mosquito could come from.
So Kristen, sorry to cut you off there. So are we learning this through Tim or?
No.
Okay. So it's just kind of information that's coming to the town. So in a way, we're waiting to be notified.
Correct. So Tim, and I will forward an email that came today. And I think he stated it a little bit, so I posed the question. The DPH will notify us.
Okay.
And then we will notify Tim, and Tim, the Central Mass Mosquito, will also get a copy of that. If we don't have it, then he states if they do not have a surveillance trap in the immediate area, they'll place one on location of the human case. Mass Department of Public Health usually tells us a rather specific location, but we cannot disclose it under HIPAA guidelines.
Okay. So we need to be notified by DPH technically before we can do anything about it.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
So that would be, if it's one, he said today that there's been no known cases. This is just kind of coming through today. So maybe it's a little bit delayed. I don't, and, I think he followed up with it as well, that he would give back, if they say, okay, we did some traps, we found 5 mosquitoes with EEE, here's what they recommend. And then the town and, the Board of Health needs to approve that. So what happens if this comes to us on Thursday and we don't have a meeting for 2 weeks? Do we need a meeting?
Well, I think we can call a meeting if need be. That's not a problem. I think we wait for to be officially notified, and hopefully by that time we have better data.
And
But-
is this someone who resides in Bolton?
I cannot speak to that matter.
You just wink with your right eye.
I know. That's why I just turned the camera on.
But what's funny is that I don't know if you noticed. So I don't know. Some of these things I'm on that it's a mirror image, and some they're not, which is weird. So I could tell you to do that and be like, oh, that was your left eye. We're fine.
Yeah.
All right. So I think again that the right thing is to wait for the notification from DPH. Again, hopefully it has more information for us, actionable stuff. And if we've got to meet this week or next, as long as we meet the posting guidelines, again, I think this Zoom stuff in a way makes it easier because you can just organize it faster, I guess. And
yeah, it would just be a matter of the timeline of me posting it with the 48-hour notice to post. But I don't know if because it's a health emergency we would need to wait that long. So those are questions I have for folks at Town Hall.
Well, that's a good point. If it is a public health emergency, do we have to follow open meeting law protocol?
Correct.
I would say no. Scott's wife might disagree.
Again, I'll ask my friends at Town Hall.
Actually, ask Pam. Is she in the give her a shout?
No,
I
Scott.
think- Anthony, I handled this once. We may be able to waive the notice and call an emergency meeting. As to whether or not we can go into executive session, I'm not sure, which is
And
what we'd be doing.
I kind of came up with that with this meeting here. Felt that this conversation could have taken a little bit more detail into an executive session because more details could have been discussed, but executive session was not on the agenda.
Right,
Understood.
I can't,
and you haven't declared an emergency as yet.
Correct. And, if there is, if it's, the test results are still coming in and the EEE isn't
Right.
found, then, or maybe it was a mosquito and that mosquito's now gone. I don't know.
The
I guess
contact
it's-
tracing is important.
Correct. And that's what Tim said. That's how I can best kind of what's going on right now. Coronavirus tracing, they'll ask, where were you? Where do you work? Where do you live? you know, if somebody says, yeah, I spent all day at so-and-so's baseball game and in this town, well, that's someplace to look at. You know, it could be 30 miles away.
Right.
We
Right.
traveled for baseball this weekend and went down to Uxbridge. So,
Right.
My
All right,
guess
well,
is
so
the state will talk with our mosquito expert probably before he talks to us. And
Yeah.
they'll sort of come forward with some ideas as to what we should be doing.
also speaking of mosquitoes, Chris, I had sent you an email last week, maybe. I don't have it printed in front of me. The state wanted an arborvirus contact.
Yeah, but I did see that, and I apologize for not getting back to you because I think by the time I got it, it had expired. Like it was.
I wrote back to him and I said, because I got it on a Thursday afternoon and they wanted it due by Friday morning. And I just said, there's no way. I said, you know, town hall was closed on this day. How are we going to, how am I supposed to get that part figured out? Where is it now?
So what? Refresh my memory. What? I mean, it seems logical that you would be the contact, right?
I believe so. Information updating coronavirus coordinators. I'm reaching out because we have been, I have been identified as a primary or backup arborvirus for our jurisdiction. It is imperative to the Mass Department of Public Health. So it's the city, town, the coordinator, and then a backup. Again, happy to be the coordinator. I don't check my work emails on the weekend, but who would the backup person be for this? Scott, as a
Sounds good.
chair?
I'm happy to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, well, yeah, that makes sense. You're becoming our mosquito, a resident expert. So
All right. I will submit that tomorrow then.
great.
And speaking of that, Chris, I should mention that I was interviewed by the Bolton Independent for an article. There's actually probably going to be a couple of articles about the mosquito project and, you know, the town meeting article that was approved, et cetera. So it'll help get more information out.
Okay, yeah, I mean, you know, I think we're always going to have a portion of the population who is vehemently against this, but I think education is the most critical piece, just to let people know that it's not, you know, it's not just a spray-only program, that there's mitigation, et cetera, et cetera.
Right, right.
So, all right. Well, unless anybody have anything else?
Okay, motion we adjourn.
I second. And Kristen, you'll notify us as soon as something pops with DPH about Triple E.
Yes,
Okey doke.
will do.
All in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Aye. See you guys. Good to see you.
See you in 2 weeks. Bye.